Today, we're going to go back in time to relive a truly magical moment in sports history, the 1979 NCAA tournament run of the Indiana State Sycamores, led by the legendary Larry Bird. It's a classic Cinderella story, a small-town team, an unlikely hero, and the journey that captivated the nation. The Indiana State Sycamores' 1979 NCAA tournament run wasn't just about Larry Bird's talent. It was about the team's extraordinary teamwork and Bird's willingness to share the spotlight and trust his teammates. By the start of the tournament, the Sycamores had removed the tag of nobodies. They entered the tournament undefeated, boasting an impressive 31-0 record. But they were far from a traditional powerhouse. They hailed from Terre Haute, Indiana, a far cry from the basketball meccas of the ACC and Big Ten. And their star player, Larry Bird, was undeniably talented, but was seen as a bit of an oddity. He wasn't flashy, he didn't have a high-flying game, and he certainly didn't fit the mold of the typical basketball superstar. But Bird had a certain something. What do they always say? A je ne sais quoi. I sound ridiculous saying that. But this quiet intensity that kind of goes with Bird, an almost supernatural understanding of the game, and a left hand that, despite a triple hairline fracture suffered just one game before the tournament, could still dish out passes that would make people's heads spin. Their first game was against Virginia Tech, a team that had just blown out Jacksonville in the opening round. And the Sycamores, understandably, were a bit nervous playing on the big stage for the first time and started out shaky. Bird was hampered by his injured thumb, and he was uncharacteristically quiet in the first half. But then, a moment of magic happened. Alex Gilbert, a key role player for the Sycamores, soared through the air for a thunderous putback dunk and ignited the team and the crowd. From that point on, the Sycamores were unstoppable, outscoring Virginia Tech 21-0 to cruise to an 86-69 victory. You know, this is something that always interests me in basketball games or any sporting events, these tiny moments that, in retrospect, often feel like the whole game. Like, if that had not happened, would the game have been closer? Would the Sycamores have lost? It just seems incredible that these small moments can make such a big difference, and yet we always call out to them when we're reliving these moments. It helps with the narrative, of course, but as a player, too, I recognize the feeling that you get at times when the perfect shot is hit, or when a series of shots is hit in a row and your emotional tie to the game feels like it's slipping away. You know, this first game, too, was a microcosm of the Sycamores season. They were a team, a true team. They relied on each other to win. And of course, Bird was the star, but the supporting cast played a crucial role. In this game, Gilbert had 12 points. Brad Miley was the defensive specialist and shut down Virginia Tech's star freshman, Dale Solomon. This team-first mentality was a constant theme throughout the tournament. After their win against Virginia Tech, Carl Nix, another player for the Sycamores, emphasized that point. He said, "I just want everybody to understand that we ain't got no one-man team." And Bird felt this too throughout the season, even at times calling it out to the media. He understood that while his talents may have helped him to stand out and elevated their team, that he was not alone in these games, that they played together, they played for each other. Their next opponent was the University of Oklahoma, a team coached by Dave Bliss, who ironically had tried to recruit Bird to Indiana University just a few years earlier. The Sooners were a solid team, but they were no match for the well-oiled machine that was the Sycamores. Bird had another monster game, putting up 29 points, 15 rebounds, and 5 assists. Once again, the supporting cast stepped up. Nix had 20 points, Gilbert added 12, and Bob Heaton and Leroy Staley chipped in for 9 each. The Sycamores won convincingly 93-72, extending their undefeated streak to 32 games. Bird had his usual stellar performance, but the well-balanced attack, those 20 points from Nix, 12 from Gilbert, 9, and even opposing coaches started to recognize Indiana State's strength as a team. The Oklahoma coach, Dave Bliss, he praised Bird's passing ability, and he said his shooting, as good as it is, isn't going to win as many games for Indiana State as his passing will. They are a very good team. With Larry Bird, they're a great team. Despite being double and triple teamed, Bird repeatedly passed the ball to his open teammates. He trusted them to make the shots. Standing in their way of a trip to the Final Four was the University of Arkansas. And they had their own star player, Sidney Moncrief. Now, there's this thing on YouTube videos in the last few years where people say he was a problem. So I had to go look up some Sidney Moncrief highlights, and gotta say, he was a problem. So if you don't know who that is, worth hitting the YouTube and seeing some of his highlights. This matchup was a clash of styles. The high-flying, fast-paced Sycamores against the disciplined, defense-oriented Razorbacks. The game was a nail-biter going down to the wire. With the score tied 71-71 and just over a minute to play, Arkansas had the ball. A controversial no call on what looked like a clear foul gave Indiana State the ball back with a minute left. Bill Hodges, the Sycamores coach, drew up a play for Bird, but told him to pass if he was double-teamed. As the clock wound down, Bird found himself with the ball, but instead of forcing the shot, that teammate, that team-first personality came through, and he found Bob Heaton open in the lane. Heaton, using his left arm, the same arm that he nearly lost in a childhood accident, lofted a shot that bounced around the rim before falling through the net as the buzzer sounded. Indiana State had done it. They defeated Arkansas 73-71 to advance to the Final Four, and they were still undefeated. The game was a testament to Bird's unselfishness and his trust in his teammates. Even with the weight of an undefeated season and a trip to the Final Four on his shoulders, he knew the right play was to pass. Heaton's game winner was just the latest chapter in a storybook season. The Sycamores had captured the hearts of the nation, proving that even a team from a small town with a star player who didn't fit the mold could achieve greatness. This unselfishness is showcased in this game, and that the season is a showcase for Bird's unselfishness. It's something that's the bedrock of his game. And I find the projection of Bird into the future is LeBron James, a guy who has always been able to score and is now the all-time leading scorer in the history of the NBA, but who passing and was often criticized for making the right play and passing early in his career. But in the final seconds of this Arkansas game, Bird made the crucial decision to pass the ball to Heaton instead of taking the final shot himself, even though the game was tied and a trip to the Final Four was on the line. This moment just exemplifies that belief in his teammates and his understanding that he's going to ride with these guys, win or lose. He's got to trust them to go as far as he wants to go. He has to have this team around him. Coach Eddie Sutton, who's another legend, despite his initial hesitation to put Sidney Moncrief on Bird, acknowledged that the Sycamores' collective talent, saying, hey, they've got a heck of a team. Until somebody beats them, I'd say they deserve that number one rating. Bird's, again, willingness to share that spotlight, his humility, his team-first attitude extended beyond the court. We've talked about his silent season, but he encouraged his teammates to interact with the press, to give them a platform to gain recognition and bolster their confidence. Bird's rationale for this was simple. Playing college basketball is supposed to be fun. But if I had to spend an hour or so every day talking to reporters, I wouldn't have time for much else. If I let Carl Nix and others talk to the press, it helps them. Now, they get the publicity they deserve, and maybe he gets some time back to head to the local watering hole. These examples illustrate that Indiana State's success stemmed from a collective effort, with Bird serving as a leader who orchestrated the talents of his teammates. The journey was not solely about Bird's individual brilliance, but about synergy, trust, and a shared belief that transformed the Sycamores into an exceptional team. Here's some questions for you to think about. What do you think was the key to Indiana State's success that year? Was it Bird's brilliance, Hodges' coaching, the chemistry, the unselfishness, or maybe all the above? Of course, if you know who Larry Bird is, you've heard about Bird's legendary trash talking. I'm curious what people think of trash talking in this day and age. Do you think trash talking has a place in the game? Does it help or hurt the game? Of course, it's also mentioned several places in the sources that the pressure Bird faced as a white player in a predominantly black sport. Now, how do you think race played into Bird's experience, both positively and negatively? It's still a hot button topic at times today. You know, it's more prominent right now in the WNBA with Caitlin Clark. She was recently named Time Magazine's Athlete of the Year, if magazines still mean anything. But she acknowledges some of the privilege that she has, and there's been some blowback to that. I think it's interesting that all these years later, more than 40 years later, these themes still bubble up under the surface. Maybe it's something that will always be with us. Maybe it's something that we should ignore. Maybe it's something we shouldn't ignore and we should talk about more. I'm curious what you all think about this. I'd love to hear from you. That's all for this part of the episode. Stay tuned, though, because this week's episode, we've got a second part. We're going to explore Michigan State's journey to the Final Four. Michigan State's journey to the 1979 NCAA championship was marked by a series of transformations. They evolved from a team grappling with internal conflicts and unexpected loss to a dominant force, fueled by a potent combination of coaching adjustments, player empowerment, and the unmatched talent of Earvin Magic Johnson. Let's take a look at their path and some highlights from key events and insights that I gathered from sources from the time. We talked in more depth before about the turning point, which was a team meeting and a shift in strategy. Let's go back and highlight the sources talking about this pivotal moment in Michigan State's season, this team meeting that followed the disheartening loss to Northwestern. Again, this meeting is detailed in the Detroit Free Press by Mick McCabe, and it signified a shift in the team dynamics and coaching strategy. Johnson, after the fact, reflected on the meeting and stated, "We told the coaches to stay off our backs and we would play harder." What a modern approach to basketball. Just reading that sentence, it feels like it could come from a game today that's going on, or a dynamic that has certainly evolved into a situation where often the coaches feel like managers more than coaches, where the coaches used to drive the game and now they're more passengers or orchestra conductors. But I think also that this quote suggests the desire for autonomy and a belief in their ability to perform when given the freedom to do so. And of course, there's the other side of that. Judd Heathcote wasn't exactly the most, I wouldn't call him Gumby or a flag blowing in the wind. But this was an adaptation. Judd Heathcote, known for his conservative approach, responded to his team's call for change by adopting a faster paced, less structured offense. This strategic adjustment allowed Johnson to orchestrate the offense with more creativity, and it capitalized on the team's athleticism. Lynn Henning, a former State Journal columnist, noted that Judd never wanted to be known that he had to back off, but he backed off those guys and let them have their freedom. The freedom translated into victories. And they thrived on that freedom, and it ballooned their confidence. Many of the sources suggested that this newfound freedom and trust from the coaching staff ignited a spark in the Spartans. They embraced a more fluid style of play and showcased Johnson's remarkable ability to create scoring opportunities for himself and his teammates. One of the commentators at the time, Al McGuire, eloquently captured this during a broadcast, saying, "The same thing holds true with Johnson as it does with Larry Bird. You'd prefer to have them take a shot than pass. If they pass, it's 90% they're going to get a basket. If they shoot, it's only 50. This observation highlights the dual threat Johnson posed, demanding defensive attention that opened up opportunities for his teammates. The Spartans' path was not without challenges, and many of the sources that I looked through detailed a significant setback. A stress fracture to Jay Vincent, who was a key player. This forced Heathcote to make further adjustments. He moved Ron Charles to the starting center position, While Charles initially struggled with his demotion from the starting lineup, his teammates rallied around him, boosting his morale with playful songs and encouragement. This camaraderie and the support system that evolved around it proved instrumental in helping Charles regain his confidence and contribute significantly to the team's success. What I love about the Spartans, too, is that even amongst some of the challenges, they had dominating performances and this growing national presence. I think that an important thing for a truly great team, a team that can win a championship, are dominating performances where they look like they're, especially in college basketball, they look like they're in a different league or playing a different game sometime. And certainly Michigan State did. Their tournament run featured a series of convincing victories. They handily defeated Lamar, and they outscored them 95-64 in a game that underscored their newfound offensive firepower and Johnson's extraordinary playmaking abilities. Their win over LSU was marked by Charles's standout performance. He had 18 points and 14 rebounds and further demonstrated their depth and that resilience that we've been talking about. With each victory, Michigan State's unique style of play that was driven by Johnson's electrifying skills captivated a growing national audience. Johnson, in his own words, expressed the team's confidence by saying, "If we're on top of our game, ain't nobody in the world can beat Michigan State." They also had an under-the-radar or maybe less talked about aspect to their game. They outsmarted a lot of their teams. And they used this especially in the Notre Dame game. They not only outsmarted them, but they outplayed them. A lot of the sources that I looked through on this game highlighted this pivotal matchup against Notre Dame. Notre Dame was a nationally recognized team with a reputation for strong inside play. But Heathcote was known for his meticulous scouting and preparation, and he devised a game plan that exploited Notre Dame's weaknesses. And of course, the smarts of his team helped him to implement this 2-3 zone defense and effectively neutralize Notre Dame's inside game. It forced them to rely on less efficient jump shots. Again, this is an era before the three-point line. Furthermore, Heathcote surprised Notre Dame with a well-rehearsed opening tip play, resulting in an immediate basket that set the tone for the game. The season, in some ways, was similar to Indiana State. It was a showcase of teamwork and individual brilliance. The game against Notre Dame was a showcase of both Michigan State's exceptional teamwork and Johnson's dazzling individual talent. Many of the sources describe a series of highlight reel plays, including an alley-oop pass to Greg Kelser, a steal and assist sequence culminating in a Donnelly layup, and Johnson's ability to manipulate the defense with his passing, leading to easy scoring opportunities for his teammates. Kelser finished with a season-high 34 points, a testament to Johnson's playmaking brilliance and the effectiveness of Michigan State's offensive strategy. Michigan State's run to the championship wasn't solely about individual talent, but again, about a team that embraced change, embraced challenges, fought through injuries, found strength in adversity, and developed a dynamic, fast-paced style of play that caught opponents off guard. Johnson, as their orchestrator and leader, embodied this transformation, dazzling audiences with his unique blend of skill and charisma. Their story is a testament to the power of adaptation, teamwork, and belief in their potential. Thank you for joining us for this week's episode of Iconic Seasons 1979. We'll be back with more stories from the 1979 season. If you like this week's episode, leave us a rating or review. Until next time, keep your below in your eyes.